Beyond amyloid and tau, new targets in developing dementia treatments. Alzheimer's disease is the most common form of dementia. Although its exact cause is unknown, for many years scientists have believed that a protein called beta-amyloid was responsible. Recently, this amyloid hypothesis has been questioned, and there has been a huge upsurge in dementia research. Here, we round up the latest findings, look at possible advances in diagnosis, and ask, where next for Alzheimer's research and treatment? Researchers are going beyond beta-amyloid and tau in the search for new treatment targets for dementia. Image credit, Merodach/Getty Images. There are several forms of dementia, of which Alzheimer's disease is the most common. According to the World Health Organization trusted source, WHO, there are currently 55 million people worldwide with dementia, and of these between 30 and 40 million are likely to have Alzheimer's. With an aging population around the world, the number of people with dementia is rising rapidly. The Alzheimer's Association trusted source estimates that 6.7 million people in the United States have Alzheimer's disease, but by 2050, that number is predicted to almost double to 12.7 million. Although Alzheimer's is the most common form of dementia, its exact cause still eludes researchers. For several years, most have regarded the beta-amyloid hypothesis as the most likely explanation, but recently, this has been called into question. So, is beta-amyloid the cause of Alzheimer's, or are there other changes that may lead to this disease that is the seventh most common trusted source cause of death worldwide? This question has been the subject of much recent research. Beta-amyloid and tau. Beta-amyloid trusted source is a peptide trusted source formed from a larger protein, called amyloid precursor protein trusted source, AP. AP is a type I membrane glycoprotein that is involved in the development and function of nerve cells, signaling, and transport within cells. When enzymes cut AP into smaller molecules, beta-amyloid monomers trusted source are one of the products. These monomers are likely to be important in maintaining the health of nerve cells trusted source. The problems occur when beta-amyloid aggregates into fibrils and plaques trusted source, which many researchers believe play a large part in the development of Alzheimer's. The amyloid cascade hypothesis, first proposed in 1992, suggested that amyloid plaques were the first stage in the development of Alzheimer's, leading to neurofibrillary tangles trusted source, tau tangles, cell loss, vascular damage, and dementia. Tau is a protein that helps to stabilize the internal skeleton of nerve cells. In Alzheimer's disease, an abnormal form of tau builds up, disrupting the internal skeleton and forming tangles. These tangles slow a person's ability to think and remember. It is widely acknowledged that the cognitive symptoms due to Alzheimer's disease correlate most closely with the predictable spread of tau protein in the brain. Dr. Emmer Maxwini, CEO and consultant neuroradiologist at Cognition Health. Questioning the amyloid hypothesis. Yet researchers have begun to question whether the amyloid cascade hypothesis is the best explanation for the development of Alzheimer's disease. New drugs that target beta-amyloid buildup have been shown to clear amyloid plaques, but none have yet succeeded in reversing Alzheimer's symptoms. However, there is some evidence that they may slow cognitive decline, as Dr. Maxwini told Medical News Today. The FDA, Food and Drug Administration, approval of lecanemab in January this year, confirmed a correlation between the removal of amyloid protein from the brain and slowing of the progression of cognitive decline in individuals with mild cognitive impairment, MCI, and mild dementia due to Alzheimer's disease, she noted. However, the relationship between amyloid and Alzheimer's is not entirely clear. Although there appears to be a correlation between plaques and dementia, many people who showed no signs of dementia have significant amyloid pathology on postmortem examination. Recently, in another blow to the hypothesis, scientists questioned the veracity of images in a 2006 paper that was thought to provide firm evidence for the theory. This paper, published in Nature Trusted Source, showed that when young rats were injected with a particular beta amyloid 56, they developed memory deficits. Although the paper has been cited more than 2,000 times, because it has been suggested that images may have been manipulated, the findings of the paper are now disputed. However, Dr. Sweeney believes that work should continue on drugs that target beta amyloid. Many new treatments in development, currently, continue to focus on toxic amyloid protein, and it is likely medications will come to market that provide an even more effective reduction in rate of cognitive decline than lecanemab. Perhaps beta amyloid is part of the explanation, but it is looking less likely that it can fully explain the development of Alzheimer's. What is under investigation? A recent study reinforced evidence for the involvement of beta amyloid but proposed a different mechanism of action. Its findings suggested that beta amyloid was causing two proteins to bind together, activating genes that then stimulate the accumulation of tau. The researchers identified a drug that could disrupt this process, suggesting a possible treatment pathway. Another study has suggested that cognitive decline might be triggered by the dysfunction of astrocytes trusted source, glial cells trusted source that make up the majority of cells in the human central nervous system, CNS, and help maintain the correct environment for nerve cells. The study suggests that abnormal immune activity in astrocytes may cause cognitive deficits in dementia. Also supporting the involvement of astrocytes is another study, from South Korea, which suggests that reactive astrocytes excessively absorb acetate in models of Alzheimer's disease, and that this elevated uptake is associated with reduced cognitive function. Alzheimer's risk factors and health stressors. As the hunt goes on for treatments for Alzheimer's disease, another key goal of the research is to identify factors that increase a person's risk, so these can be addressed to try and mitigate that risk. It's critical that doctors caring for middle-aged and older adults look both beyond and before the deposition of amyloid and tau in the brain. We now know of literally dozens of health stressors that lead to neurodegenerative dementias. Dr. David Merrill, adult and geriatric psychiatrist and director of the Pacific Neuroscience Institute's Pacific Brain Health Center at Providence St. John's Health Center in Santa Monica, California. More than twice as many women as men are affected by Alzheimer's disease, and although this has often been explained by the greater longevity of women, researchers have also investigated whether hormones may affect risk. A new study has found that early menopause is associated with elevated levels of tau in the brain, particularly in women who delay the start of hormone therapy, HRT. As those in this study with a later menopause or earlier start of HRT did not have the same increase in tau, this could suggest that estrogen has a protective effect against Alzheimer's disease. But there may be other explanations for the greater prevalence of Alzheimer's disease in women. The ApoE4 trusted source gene variant, which increases dementia risk and is carried by around 15% to 25% of people, seems to have more effect in women than men. Other studies have suggested that some medications, such as those used for sleep and frequent microbial infections, are associated with an increased Alzheimer's disease risk. And Dr. Sweeney explained that there are many avenues still to be investigated. The understanding of this disease, which is not likely to be one disease entity, is becoming increasingly sophisticated with multiple diagnostic biomarkers and numerous new types of potential treatments, aimed at many different components of the disease etiology, she told us. These new avenues of research include a. Focus on potential new treatments involving epigenetic, neuroinflammatory, recent developments in immune-mediated mechanisms, she added. One way to help slow the progress of Alzheimer's disease is by diagnosing the condition early trusted source, so that exposure to common risk factors can be modified. Early diagnosis also means treatment can be started to help manage symptoms. And there has been much progress in the hunt for rapid, less invasive methods of diagnosing Alzheimer's disease earlier. Recent studies have identified several biomarkers in the blood trusted source that may indicate Alzheimer's disease. One study found a connection between levels of a sugar molecule, glycan, in the blood, and tau, which might predict Alzheimer's disease up to 10 years before symptom onset. Another identified phosphorylated tau as a possible predictor. Yet another study, which found significant changes in the retinas of people who had died with Alzheimer's disease, suggests that retinal screening might be a non-invasive method of detecting the early stages of Alzheimer's. Potential new treatments. In addition to the new medications that target amyloid plaques, other therapies under investigation are showing promise. In a study in mice, researchers identified that nerve cells in the mammillary body trusted source were particularly susceptible to neurodegeneration, and they could reverse resulting memory impairments by treating them with a drug that is now used to treat epilepsy. Dr. Maxwini agreed that mammillary bodies were worth further investigation. Similar findings have been elucidated in humans, and Sci's lab is now working on further defining how the lateral neurons of the mammillary body are connected to other parts of the brain, to figure out how it forms memory circuits and how to then design very targeted new treatments for Alzheimer's disease, to prevent progression of symptoms and, ideally, to prevent symptoms developing in the first place. This area of the brain has also been the focus of research into deep brain stimulation to alleviate Alzheimer's disease symptoms. Although this treatment generally involves inserting electrodes into the brain, a new non-invasive method called chemogenetics showed promise in a mouse model, prompting calls for further research into its potential. One avenue of research includes the identification of drug targets that could mimic its beneficial effects in people with Alzheimer's disease. The molecule mRNA trusted source might be another target in combating Alzheimer's disease. A study from China recently found that modifying mRNA in mice helped improve the cognitive symptoms of Alzheimer's disease. The outlook for Alzheimer's disease. Dementia can be solved, but it won't be from targeting a single health factor. We need to leave no stone unturned for each individual at risk for Alzheimer's, optimizing suboptimal factors throughout life and into old age. This gives us each the best odds of achieving successful aging free of the chronic disability associated with AD and other neurodegenerative dementias. Dr. David Merrill. There may not yet be a cure for Alzheimer's disease, but, with the renaissance of research efforts focused on this disorder, the outlook will likely become brighter for the many people affected by it. Perhaps the last word should go to Dr. Maria C. Carrillo, Chief Science Officer of the Alzheimer's Association. As with any renaissance, the invigoration of the Alzheimer's and dementia field comes with vigorous debate and disagreement, those who cling on to established ideas and those who seek to smash the status quo, said Dr. Carrillo. This debate and disagreement are essential in research, and as a community, we must be grounded in evidence to drive our progress, she emphasized. Alzheimer's/dementia neurology/neuroscience drugs. Share this article. By Catherine Lang on April 29, 2023, fact-checked by Harriet Pike, Ph.D. Latest news. How no-contact boxing may help combat Parkinson's disease. Could stress be a cause of higher Alzheimer's risk in women? Asthma and atopic dermatitis may increase the risk of developing osteoarthritis. Researchers may have discovered link between chronic kidney disease and cardiovascular disease. Physical activity is the key to improved post-stroke recovery, study finds. Was this article helpful? Yes. No. Could stress be a cause of higher Alzheimer's risk in women? Could stress play a role in Alzheimer's risk in females? Image credit, Jed Share/Karu Share/Getty Images. Women are twice as likely as men to develop Alzheimer's disease, the most common form of dementia. The greater life expectancy of women is a major factor, but longevity alone cannot account for the huge difference in risk. Hormones, genetics, and lifestyle factors are all possible explanations. Now, a study has found that stress leads to a rise in beta amyloid, the protein that forms the plaques found in the brains of people with Alzheimer's, in female mice. More research is needed to confirm the mechanisms behind the difference and whether the same happens in people. Alzheimer's disease is the most common form of dementia, causing up to 70% of dementia cases. According to the Alzheimer's Association, it affects some 6 million people in the United States, and around 2/3 of those affected are women. Increasing age is the greatest risk factor for Alzheimer's disease, and women, on average, live longer than men. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention Trusted Source, CDC, in 2021, women's life expectancy at birth in the United States was 79.1 years, compared with 73.2 for men. Dr. Emmer McSweeney, CEO and consultant neuroradiologist at Cognition Health, told Medical News Today that the risk of developing Alzheimer's disease is multifactorial, with a higher incidence in women than men, even when adjusted for the longer average lifespan for women. Why are women more at risk than men? Those extra life years alone cannot fully explain the difference in Alzheimer's disease risk between women and men. Recent research has suggested that hormonal changes after menopause may contribute to risk. Trusted source. And women may have a greater genetic risk, too. The ApoE4 trusted source gene variant, which increases dementia risk and is carried by around 15% to 25% of people, seems to have more effect in women than men. Also under investigation are societal and lifestyle factors. The Alzheimer's Association recently reported that women who undertook paid employment had slower memory decline in late life than those who did not. Recent research has focused on whether stress is a contributing factor. It has been shown that stress can accelerate symptoms of Alzheimer's. Trusted source, but how might it increase the risk of developing Alzheimer's disease? Stress and cognitive function. A new study has found that stress leads to a rise in beta amyloid in female mice, and not in males. Beta amyloid forms plaques in the brain that interfere with nerve impulses and trigger inflammation and are widely thought to be responsible for trusted source many of the symptoms of Alzheimer's disease. The study, from Washington University School of Medicine, St. Louis, is published in Brain. Stress can have a profound effect on the body, and we are understanding more about the implications it can have to our mental and physical health, both positive and negative, explained Sebnem Unlewisler, genetic engineer and chief longevity officer at the London Regenerative Institute in the United Kingdom, not involved in the study. Stress triggers the release of hormones such as cortisol and adrenaline, which, if produced excessively or over a prolonged period of time, can have a hugely negative effect on the body, causing inflammation, damage to DNA and cells, and accelerating the aging process, which of course can affect the brain and cognition, she added. Dr. John Cerrito, co-lead study author, and a professor in the Department of Neurology at Washington University School of Medicine in St. Louis, also told us why stress might play a role in Alzheimer's risk in women. Many other studies have demonstrated that women are more likely to be stressed, that stress is linked to increased risk of Alzheimer's disease, and that women are at higher risk of Alzheimer's disease. We are not the first to put together this possible link. However, there could many possible reasons that link stress, women, and Alzheimer's disease, including correlational, comorbidities, and lifestyle. Our study demonstrates a direct link between stress and Alzheimer's disease in women at a cellular level, he told MNT. Measuring the stress response. Whilst stress has been accepted as a significant risk factor, Edwards et al. Have provided new data from studies on mice to explain why a different response to stress may account for the higher incidence of Alzheimer's disease in women, compared to men, said Dr. McSweeney. Using mice, the researchers in the current study investigated the effect of stress on levels of beta amyloid in the interstitial fluid trusted source of the hippocampus trusted source. The hippocampus is an area of the brain that is affected trusted source in the early stages of Alzheimer's disease and continues to deteriorate as the disease progresses. They exposed mice to one of two stressors, restraint stress or olfactory stress, for 3 hours. Restraint stress involved placing the mouse in a small, clear, plastic container with air holes that restricted their movement. For olfactory stress, a small tube containing 0.1 milliliters (ml) of urine from a predator, fox, bobcat, or coyote, was placed in their normal cage. The urine was swapped every 30 minutes so the mice did not become accustomed to the scent of one predator. Beta amyloid levels were measured before, during, and after stress, for a total of 22 hours. Sex differences, stress, and beta amyloid. The researchers measured levels of stress hormones in the blood of the mice, and found that males and females were experiencing similar levels of stress. But there was a significant difference in beta amyloid levels. In female mice, beta amyloid levels in the interstitial fluid rose by around 50% within the first 2 hours of stress, and stayed elevated for the rest of the monitoring period. Only about 20% of male mice exhibited a small, delayed increase in beta amyloid. Dr. Cerrito explained the importance of raised beta amyloid in the interstitial fluid. In mice, there is a tight correlation between the concentration of interstitial fluid, beta amyloid within a brain region and how much that region develops beta amyloid plaques. Elevated interstitial fluid, beta amyloid also drives plaque formation, vice versa with suppressed interstitial fluid, beta amyloid. However, he added that it is difficult to make that direct comparison in humans since we cannot measure interstitial fluid as readily in people. Cellular pathway. Key to the difference between males and females was the cellular response to the stress hormone, corticotropin-releasing factor trusted source, CRF. In female mice, nerve cells take up this hormone. The cascade of events that follows increases levels of beta amyloid in the brain. The nerve cells of male mice do not take up the hormone. The researchers suggest that this is due to the CRF receptor acting differently in males and females. Whilst the study strongly suggests stress is one potential factor that may influence risk quite significantly, it is still only one of many factors. However, the authors are the first to determine, at the cell signaling level, why stress differentially affects disease-related proteins in males and females. Dr. Emmer Maxwini. Might the same happen in people? While this finding in mice is important, the researchers recognize that the mechanism may not be the same in people. However, their findings may help show directions for further research and treatment, as Dr. Maxwini explained. It is not possible to extrapolate, with confidence, that this differential response to stress in mice translates precisely to humans, she told us. However, the physiological explanation in mice is interesting, and could provide, at least in part, the explanation for the gender differences between men and women for risk of Alzheimer's. The finding is, in turn, important in guiding future pharmaceutical research towards new treatment options that may differ between males and females, she added. Alzheimer's/dementia anxiety/stress neurology/neuroscience. Share this article. By Catherine Lang on May 9, 2023, fact-checked by Patricia Weiser, PharmD. Latest news. How no-contact boxing may help combat Parkinson's disease. Could stress be a cause of higher Alzheimer's risk in women? Asthma and atopic dermatitis may increase the risk of developing osteoarthritis. Researchers may have discovered link between chronic kidney disease and cardiovascular disease. Physical activity is the key to improved post-stroke recovery, study finds. Was this article helpful? Yes. No. What to know about dementia and setting up a power of attorney for healthcare. What it is. Early-stage dementia. Mid to late-stage dementia. Setting up a POA. Changing POA. Contesting a POA. For unmarried people. Next steps. Additional resources. Summary. Power of attorney, POA, allows a person to assign a representative or representatives to act on their behalf. This can benefit a person who can no longer act for themselves due to symptoms of dementia. Dementia is the term for a series of symptoms that affect a person's cognitive ability. If a person has dementia, they may reach a point where they are unable to legally make decisions about their healthcare or finances. Having a POA in place means that another person, or agent, can act on their behalf. Read on to learn more about dementia and POA, including how to assign an agent and other legal documents to consider. What is POA for healthcare? South_agency/Getty Images. POA is a legal document that allows a person, or people, to act on behalf of another. This can be limited to specific areas, such as finance or healthcare. A person may also choose to have an agent that can make general decisions for them. According to the Alzheimer's Association, a POA for healthcare, also called an advance directive, allows those with dementia to name a person to make healthcare decisions if they are no longer able to do so. These include making decisions about care facilities, treatment options, doctors and other healthcare professionals, end-of-life care plans such as do not resuscitate, DNR, instructions. It is important for a person with dementia to discuss their wishes with their chosen agent early on. This helps to ensure that everybody knows what the end-of-life plans are. A person can choose anyone over 18 years old to be their agent, although it should be someone they trust. This may be a spouse, partner, family member, or close friends. In conversation, investigating the power of music for dementia. Music can help people with dementia recover some aspects of their memory, feel calmer, and boost their mood, and evidence of this is growing each day. However, what is it about music that has such a profound effect on our brains? And is this effect long-lasting? Designed by Andrew Wynn. You might have come across a video of an older person with dementia where a particular piece of music makes them sway to the music, bringing back a flood of memories, or despite not remembering their family members, they start playing the notes to a song they used to know on the piano or violin. This phenomenon is what leaves many people puzzled about the neurological disorder that is dementia. How can someone forget their own children's names but remember something as complex as a classical piece of music? That question was one of the many we aimed to seek an answer to in our April podcast In Conversation, investigating the power of music for dementia. Joining the conversation this month were Dr. Kelly Jakubowski, Assistant Professor in Music Psychology at Durham University, and Beatty Wolf, singer, songwriter, and ambassador for the charity Music for Dementia. You can listen to this month's episode below, or on your preferred streaming platform. How music aids health. Whether lyrical or instrumental, music is a creative combination of rhythm, harmony, and the expression of emotion. Numerous studies can also attest to its many health benefits. A 2013 trusted source study, for example, found that music can have a relaxing effect prior to stressful situations and help the nervous system recover quicker. Another study from the same year found that listening to music helped reduce pain and anxiety for children in hospital. Besides its physiological benefits, research has also found evidence of music's positive impact on cognitive health. A recent study suggested that practicing and actively listening to music may help slow the decline of cognitive function in people ages 62 to 78 years. The researchers found that engaging in musical activities increased the brain's gray matter in some areas, which increased its neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to rewire itself, which is crucial for learning and forming memories. In terms of actively practicing music, a 2023 study also suggested that long-term music training may provide potential functional benefits to the brain and help keep it young. Such findings make music a potentially powerful tool in treating dementia, which is characterized by an array of symptoms that include memory loss and difficulties with thinking, language, and problem-solving. Music as a connector. One other way music may help cognitive health is by becoming a medium for connection. Multiple studies trusted source have shown that social isolation and loneliness can speed up the progression of dementia. I feel like music is the most powerful instant connector, almost of any experience and of the arts, said Beattie. The singer-songwriter said she believes the arts, in general, not just music, can be medicinally powerful, extending its power beyond a form of entertainment. Because music is all-pervasive, it's not something that requires the person to get up and dance or draw. Someone can just absorb the frequencies and the words and this whole soundscape. For me, definitely, music was always this kind of powerful resource that I used to feel good. Hen, you have seen the responses I've seen to music, you have infinite respect and appreciation for it, she said. Being in complete silence. However, as much as sound and music have an impact on our health, the lack of it, silence, is just as, if not more impactful. A 2020 trusted source study found that silence can be relaxing and therapeutic, reducing brain wave frequency all the while lowering blood pressure. In fact, research has also shown the detriment of too much noise and loud sounds on cognitive health. A 2022 trusted source study indicated that chronic exposure to loud sounds, such as heavy traffic, may be a specific risk factor for dementia. Our guest Beattie shared her thoughts on how complete silence impacted her by recounting her experience in what was the world's quietest room where she recorded her raw space album in the Bell Labs anechoic chamber. It was one of the most profound experiences I think I've ever had, and it's something that I continually return to. Even now it feels like it's almost become more relevant today. As the world's just got noisier, both literally in terms of sonically but also informationally, we're getting bombarded from all angles, with social media and notifications, and all of these things that are hitting us that are kind of frazzling us, she said. The quietest room. You feel silence, it's almost like you feel this entire sensory reset, and your nervous system calms down and you hear sound in this pure way with no echo and no reverb and no enhancements. And you realize that we use technology almost now so excessively to iron out all of these things that are actually what make us human beings to begin with? Beattie Wolf, singer-songwriter. Beattie seemed to enjoy the experience much more than most people do and ended up spending quite a few hours in that very chamber. I was told that I'd probably be able to stay in there for 15 minutes, because you hear the blood rushing through your veins, and the engineers typically had to take breaks because it was so intense. I ended up spending, I think it was 100 hours or more, she said. I ended up being in there for the first time for several hours, just found it so calming, maybe I'm an anomaly. But I had the opposite reaction to the freak out that people have, which I think is also about really being with yourself. I do think there's an element of it in the chamber, you are there very much with yourself, there are no distractions, there's nothing to pull you out of that internal space, she continued. Knowing lyrics over names. On the topic of recalling song lyrics but not remembering one's own children's names for people with dementia, Dr. Geit drew attention to repetition and how music can activate many brain regions and networks simultaneously. We've talked about this, the globality of music in the brain, but the repetition of a child's name is something that's happened through life, whereas the song may be kind of once a month or once a year. How can we explain that? She asked. Dr. Jakubowski said the ability to fill in words of songs was related to procedural memory. So procedural memories are something like remembering motor sequences, like being able to ride a bike, right? So, when people might not have this kind of semantic memory anymore for names and places, they still have this kind of memory for the motor sequence of singing along lyrics, probably because they've sang along to that song lots of times before, or at least sang along in their minds lots of times before to that piece of music. She said. She also said that the brain may spare certain parts of this type of memory, which could explain why some people are able to recall lyrics or play an old song on an instrument even though they have dementia. If someone had played the piano previously, often they can continue to play those familiar pieces on the piano, even quite far into the disease, she said. Witnessing the effects of music on dementia. In 2014, Beattie established a research project called The Power of Music in a group of care homes in the UK run by the Priory Group. It is easy to see in the video and snapshots of that experience how the people with dementia in those care homes start tapping their feet, clapping their hands, and singing along, some with their eyes shining. She told us about how it all started with the experience of playing original songs in English in a Portuguese nursing home. In the case of my father-in-law, I was going to play just to him, but I ended up playing to this whole ward of 100 or so people with dementia and Alzheimer's, who were all Portuguese. None of them spoke English apart from this relative. And I was playing new songs in English that they didn't have any prior connection with. And I was seeing people singing along as much as they could, and clapping and waking up, she said. This gave Beattie the idea to test out the hypothesis that music itself was powerful, whether you were already familiar with it or not. She was inspired by neurologist Oliver Sacks, who predicted in his book Musicophilia that prior knowledge of music was not a prerequisite for its influence. When she played original songs to people in the care homes in the UK, one particular song's effect on the audience stood out. Analyzing what makes a song catchy. Dr. Jakubowski weighed in on why she thinks the song Wish was a particular hit with the residents of the care home Beattie visited. In particular, Beattie uses quite short phrases. You can almost predict what the next word or the next rhyme might be, which is really nice for encouraging people to try and sing along. There's a lot of repetition. So you start to anticipate, and so it provides this nice scaffold for people to be able to join along, she said. Apart from rhyme and alliteration, Dr. Jakubowski said the very clear beat is another contributing element. The tempo of the piece of music is actually very close to what we call the sort of preferred tempo for humans. We have what we call a sort of spontaneous motor tempo, which is, basically if I asked you to just tap a beat without hearing anything, usually, people will tap around 120 beats per minute, which is around the speed of that piece of music, she said. It's a very easy piece to clap along with, because we feel comfortable clapping at that speed. So I think that invites participation as well, she added. Dr. Jakubowski also said that the structure of the music makes it easy to follow. If you don't have complicated lyrics, and you occasionally have this, that's quite easy to grasp, she said. How music evokes memories. Dr. Jakubowski has been researching MEAMS, or music-evoked autobiographical memories, in general, but believes there are various implications for its connection to dementia as well. She first talked about music's chain effect on memory recall. When music or any cue activates a memory, that can then activate other memories that are related to that. So, the idea is that, if music can evoke a memory related to that music, that might also help us to bring back other memories from that time period or memories that are linked, she said. In one of her works, Dr. Jakubowski compared music to other types of cues for autobiographical memories. We found quite consistently across several studies that music tends to, across the board, evoke more positive memories from our lives than other cues. So I think this is one clear potential therapeutic benefit, is that music seems to be a particularly effective cue for bringing us back to positive memories from our lives. And this actually seems to be even boosted further in older adults, she said. Dr. Jakubowski hopes this encourages more research to be done in this area and to see whether these findings are valid for people with dementia, especially in the later stages of the condition. Memories, music, and identity. Dr. Jakubowski also explained how music can help give back people with dementia a sense of identity, which often starts to slip away with lost memory. I think beyond that, the importance of autobiographical memories is that when we are able to recall a snippet of something from our lives, it really enhances our sense of identity and personhood, and reminds us of who we are and where we came from. And that's quite important to people who have some semblance of memory loss, because then they feel kind of stuck in the moment, and they can't reconnect with their past selves, which can then impact their mental health, she said. This sense of reconnecting, sense of personhood, and past also influences carers as well as family members. So seeing that glimpse of the person you used to know is really, really important. For family members and carers, this helps them to realize this is still a person, they have a past, and they have this rich history. Dr. Kelly Jakubowski. How long does the effect of music last? Dr. Jakubowski noted that while music's immediate benefit to health is quite apparent, to talk about a lasting benefit, consistent exposure is needed. If you hear music, you can't expect there to be a lasting benefit forever, for years later, because you heard one song 3 years ago. Having more sustained engagement with some kind of music has more benefit than hearing music and then never hearing it again, she said. She also pointed out that people can engage with music in various ways. Then listening to recorded music, in a kind of regular way, has lasting benefits for people with dementia, reducing agitation, reducing apathy, improving mood, sometimes enhancing a sense of identity, and so on. So I think there are different ways you can engage with music, she said. Where's the male contraceptive pill? Female oral contraceptive pills have been in use since the 1960s, but why are there still no oral contraceptives for males? Despite years of promising research and trial results, we appear to be no nearer to a commercially available, on-demand male contraceptive pill. What gives? How long until a male contraceptive pill becomes reality? Image credit, LENBLR/Getty Images. In most countries around the world, women and other people who menstruate have access to an array of contraceptive measures, should they want or need them. In addition to barrier methods such as female condoms, people with a female reproductive system can undergo tubal ligation, a form of female sterilization, or get a contraceptive implant, birth control shot, contraceptive patch, an intrauterine device, IUD, a vaginal ring, or contraceptive pills. According to the latest available data from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, 14% trusted source of women aged 15 to 49 in the United States use oral birth control. Indeed, the burden of contraceptive care trusted source in heterosexual relationships falls predominantly on female partners, research shows. This may not be so surprising if we look at the contraceptive methods currently available for men or people with male reproductive systems. Condoms and vasectomies are not enough. In most countries around the world, there are only 2 available male contraceptive methods: condoms, the most common barrier method of contraception, and vasectomy, which is a minimally invasive surgical procedure and permanent contraceptive method. Vasectomies are presented as reversible, but the results of a reversal procedure are not guaranteed. Some medical sources suggest that while the reversal procedure itself has up to a 95% success rate, pregnancy rates following a vasectomy reversal range between 30 to 70%. So while vasectomies are quick, easy, and very safe procedures, they may not leave much space for a change of heart regarding reproductive choices. When it comes to 100% reversible male contraception, the only option is condoms, but many men, and indeed, in many cases, their partners, dislike this method for various reasons. Research has shown that a top reason for men rejecting condoms is that the ones that are commercially available, by and large, are not the right fit, size-wise. Furthermore, both penis havers and their partners can have allergies to latex, the material that many condoms are made of, or to some substances in the lubricants or spermicides coating some condoms. This indicates that there is a stringent need for new male contraceptive methods. Indeed, men around the world have overwhelmingly attested that they would be open and even keen to try out new birth control methods, according to a large survey conducted by Steve Kretschmer, founder and executive director of Desireline, a consultancy firm serving the health development sector. Very high demand for new contraceptive methods. Kretschmer's survey addressed 15,678 men and 9,122 female partners from 8 countries: the United States, Côte d'Ivoire, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Kenya, Nigeria, Bangladesh, India, and Vietnam. The research, whose findings Kretschmer presented at a World Health Organization (WHO) webinar series in September 2022, was co-funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and the Male Contraceptive Initiative. Kretschmer told Medical News Today that he research included samples of approximately 2,000 men in the low and middle-income country markets and 3,000 men in the U.S., sampled to be representative of men aged 18 to 60, who have had sex with a woman within the past year. The survey also included female partners to assess their level of trust in their male partner's contraceptive use, as well as their willingness to shift the burden of contraceptive care to their partners. According to Kretschmer, this survey found that the demand for novel, male, contraceptive technologies is very high, with the form of administration, example, pill versus gel on shoulder, etc., dominating what drives preference. Respondents in some low and middle-income countries said they would prefer a contraceptive in gel form. Do note that the gel on shoulder preference seen in the African countries is for the administrative form of a gel only, not for the specific current hormonal product in development, Nestor 1/testosterone transdermal gel trusted source, which is a gel on shoulder application, noted Kretschmer. In the U.S., men seem to be a lot keener on a potential male contraceptive pill. MNT also conducted brief social media surveys asking male MNT and Healthline readers whether they would be open to taking a contraceptive pill in the future. Of 44 MNT respondents engaging on Twitter, 59.1% said that yes, they would consider taking male contraceptive pills. Of 376 HL respondents engaging on Instagram, 54% responded in the affirmative. So if the demand is there, why is a male contraceptive pill yet to make its appearance on the market? The first male contraceptive clinical trials. The first clinical trials for male hormonal contraceptives hail back to the 1970s trusted source. Male hormonal contraceptives have the aim of interfering with testosterone production and ultimately stopping the production of sperm. Without sperm in the semen trusted source, or seminal fluid, the fluid that typically comes out of the penis at ejaculation, and which acts as a carrier vehicle for the sperm, there is no danger of fertilizing ovules, or eggs, produced by the ovaries trusted source, which results in pregnancy. The first male hormonal contraceptives to be tested were injection-based. They appeared to be ultimately safe and effective, and the trial participants were able to produce sperm again once they stopped receiving the injections. Yet several participants discontinued their involvement in these early trials due to the fact that it took a long time for the injections to take full effect and stop the production of sperm, and because they had a dislike of the injection schedule. Later trials, in the early 2000s, tested the efficacy of hormonal contraceptive implants, though often they still required an additional injection protocol. Studies showed that the participants did not experience any serious side effects, and the contraceptive method appeared effective, yet many of the male participants dropped out, reportedly due to study protocol-related reasons and altered personal circumstances. While all this research provided key information about what might be effective and what not, none of them got very far, as the frequency of the required injections put off many of the study participants. What happened to more recent studies? Data from one of the more recent studies that promised an effective contraceptive for males were reported in the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism in 2016. This Phase 2 clinical trial tested an injectable combination hormonal contraceptive in a group of 320 healthy volunteers aged 18 to 45 years. An injection with 2 frequent side effects. The injection, administered once every 8 weeks, contained norethisterone enanthate and testosterone undecanoate, and its aim was to suppress sperm production. The study concluded that the contraceptive was effective in reducing sperm production almost to nil, and confirmed that this effect was reversible, all of which was good news. However, it also issued an important caution. Among the participants, there was a high frequency of reported moderate and severe mood disorders, including depression linked to the use of the injectable contraceptive. Despite the promising results on efficacy and overall safety, this male contraceptive candidate never made it to the market. Why? The obvious answer seems to be that the participants were uncomfortable and unwilling to put up with the reported side effects. Indeed, 20 of the original 320 participants dropped out of the trial for this reason. Yet the answer may not be as simple. Reportedly, around 75% of the volunteers said they would be happy to continue on the contraceptive at the end of the trial. So if the participants themselves were willing to continue, why did the researchers put an end to the trials? The answer is in the study paper itself. The WHO Department of Reproductive Health and Research had established an independent data safety and monitoring committee to assess the trial results, as the WHO was one of the co-sponsors of the study. In the study paper, the authors note that, in 2011, the External Monitoring Committee determined that for safety reasons, recruitment of further participants for the clinical trials should be stopped and enrolled participants should discontinue receiving injections and be transitioned to the recovery phase because, in their estimation, the risks to the study participants outweighed the potential benefits. Since then, several studies on both hormonal and non-hormonal contraceptive candidates have made the headlines, all promising the imminent advent of a commercially available male contraceptive. Oral hormonal contraceptive candidates. In June 2022, researchers from New York University presented the results of preliminary animal studies and a Phase 1 clinical trial testing 2 oral hormonal contraceptives at the Endocrine Society Annual Conference in Atlanta, Georgia. The drug candidates, dimethandrolone undecanoate (DMAU), and 11-beta-methylnineteen-nortestosterone 17-beta-dodecyl carbonate (MNTDC), are progestogenic androgens that have the potential to suppress sperm production. They also have another benefit. According to the researchers, they could help maintain healthy muscle, bone, and sexual function. The Phase 1 study results suggested that the candidates had potential, and that they were overall well tolerated by the participants. However, it remained unclear what the best dosage would be, and further studies are due. MNT contacted one of the study authors for more information on the current study development, but as of the date of this article's publication, we have not had a response. Non-hormonal contraceptive candidates. Also in 2022, researchers from the University of Minnesota presented the results of a preliminary animal study testing a non-hormonal oral contraceptive candidate at the American Chemical Society spring meeting. Their drug candidate, YCT529, works by targeting the retinoic acid receptor alpha, which plays a role in sperm formation. In theory, by not using hormones, the drug should also have fewer and less serious cases of the side effects associated with hormonal contraceptives. The same research team also investigated another potential non-hormonal candidate, EF4-177, which targets a cyclin-dependent kinase trusted source, CDK, a type of protein involved in regulating the cell cycle. In a study in mice, whose findings appeared in the Journal of Medicinal Chemistry in January 2023, the researchers found that EF4-177 was able to bind well to a CDK called CDK2, which is implicated in sperm production. This approach seemed effective in the rodent model. The researchers reported that after 28 days on the contraceptive candidate, the sperm count of the mice decreased by approximately 45%. MNT reached out to the senior author of these studies, Professor Gunda George, who is a professor of medicinal chemistry at the University of Minnesota, to find out more about her and her research team's progress on the contraceptive candidates. Professor George told us that, while she and her team are working on several potential candidates, the project that is the furthest along involves the selective retinoic acid receptor alpha inhibitor YCT525. This compound, she noted, is now licensed to the pharmaceutical company Your Choice Therapeutics, YCT. The next step, which is imminent, is the submission of an IND, Investigational New Drug, application by YCT to the Food and Drug Administration, FDA. After submission of the IND, the FDA has 30 days to respond and either allow or not allow the clinical trial to go forward, the researcher noted. We have had the female pill for about 60 years, and it is about time a male pill was developed so that men would be able to better participate in preventing pregnancies. It also would provide men with reproductive autonomy that is better than condoms and vasectomy, the only choices for men right now, said Professor George. She also noted that one of the main challenges in getting any potential male contraceptive approved for market distribution is making sure that any side effects are negligible. It is a very interesting challenge to work on contraception because a contraceptive will not cure a disease, and therefore the bar for safety is much higher than if you develop a drug for cancer or Alzheimer's disease treatment, she explained. An on-demand pill candidate. Earlier in 2023, yet another experimental male contraceptive made the headlines. Its developers, from Weill Cornell Medicine, said they are looking to create an on-demand, non-hormonal oral contraceptive that can be taken half an hour before penetrative intercourse and be effective. They also believe that their contraceptive candidate may come with no or very few side effects, thanks to the nature of the drug they are developing. They tested the drug, called TDI-11861, in mice, and published their findings in February 2023 in Nature Communications' trusted source. TDI-11861 works by targeting soluble adenylyl cyclase trusted source, SAC, a cellular signaling protein implicated in sperm production. In this study, a single dose of TDI-11861 halted sperm motility, movement, in male mice for at least 2 hours, which prevented pregnancy in their female partners without fail. MNT has spoken to two of the study's senior authors, Professor Johann Buck and Professor Lonnie Levin, about their research and drug development processes. This form of on-demand male contraception was never done before, so there are no guidelines. Essentially, it's like, we have to climb one of the mountains in the Himalayas, which nobody has climbed before, said Professor Buck of the drug development process. Their on-demand concept is based, in a way, on Viagra, said Professor Levin, that is, a pill that is effective almost immediately. Its effect lasts for a few hours, then dissipates, so that the person does not need a long-term course of medication, as is the case with the female contraceptive pills. The idea with the end product, he explained, is that people would take this a half hour or so before they want to have sexual intercourse, and they will be protected. So one of the things we want is longer coverage than what we presented in the paper. We have 100% efficacy in mice for 2 hours at the moment. In their next step, in tests on male rabbits, this window seems to be increasing, he added, so they are hopeful they can find a formulation that will hit all their targets. Why men prefer on-demand versus long-term contraceptives. This kind of on-demand pill seems to be precisely what male consumers want. MNT's and HL's own social media surveys indicated that, while most of the male respondents would be happy to take a contraceptive pill, they would be less likely to take it on a daily basis. Kretschmer's representative survey confirmed this observation. He told MNT that clearly what we're seeing among male survey respondents in the U.S. is a preference for an on-demand pill over a long-term contraceptive. Interestingly, we're seeing a similar preference among women for an on-demand female pill for contraception in a second research study that is just completing among women, he told us. There seems to be a key gap in the market, a demand for a non-intrusive method, example, pill, but which can be used only when needed. This also seems to align with an experience or understanding on the female side that chronic medication taken for an intermittent risk of pregnancy often results in experiences of side effects that may not otherwise be experienced if a product can be used acutely, only when needed, to address that intermittent risk. Steve Kretschmer. Is it possible to have a pill with few to no side effects? Like Professor George, Profs Levin and Buck noted that it is very difficult to obtain approval for a potential male contraceptive unless it has negligible side effects. But how easy and feasible is it to hit this target? According to Professor Buck, they may be on to something very promising with their contraceptive candidate. We have very few side effects in the knockout mice trusted source, he told us, and the researchers hope that this may hold true for humans once they reach the clinical trial stage. Both Professor Levin and Professor Buck acknowledged that female birth control pills, if they were being reviewed for approval in the present day, would be unlikely to receive it due to their ever-increasing list of side effects, which include mood swings, increased breast cancer risk, and blood clots. In Professor Levin's opinion, female hormonal birth control continues on the market just because society has come to accept it by now, but the side effect bar for a healthy person to take a drug is really high, and it should be, he emphasized. For their current on-demand pill candidate, the two researchers said that the most likely side effect might be the formation of kidney stones in some individuals, though they felt this was not a significant concern, as kidney stones often clear organically, without the need for surgical intervention. Still, their goal remains to create a pill with zero side effects, they said. Currently, the researchers have gone back to the drawing board to not only perfect their current compound but also to come up with possible alternatives. The next steps, after that, get to be incredibly expensive, said Professor Levin, for FDA and regulatory approval throughout the world. We'd like to have regulatory approval everywhere, not just from the FDA, but those steps are incredibly expensive. And before we embark on that kind of journey, we want to be sure we have the best possible compound we can, he told us. In the meantime, they have started a biotech company with the ultimate goal of bringing their end product male contraceptive to the market. Managing chronic inflammation with psoriasis. Inflammation causes. Treating inflammation. Lifestyle tips. When to contact a doctor. Although the exact cause of psoriasis is unknown, doctors consider it an immune-mediated inflammatory disease. This means that inflammation is at the root of this condition. Up to 3% trusted source of adults in the United States have psoriasis. It causes skin symptoms, such as raised plaques and discoloration, and can also impact other parts of the body, such as the joints and eyes. Experts believe inflammation is the common factor that can impact these different areas. What causes inflammation in psoriasis? In people with psoriasis, immune system dysfunction causes inflammatory cells to build up in the middle layer of the skin, known as the dermis. The condition also speeds the growth of skin cells in the epidermis, the outer skin layer. Typically, skin cells grow and flake off in the span of a month. This process speeds up to just a few days in people with psoriasis. Instead of shedding, skin cells pile up on the skin surface, leading to uncomfortable symptoms such as raised plaques, scales, swelling, and redness or discoloration. Even though psoriasis is a skin condition, the inflammation associated with psoriasis impacts trusted source, the entire body. It can increase the risk of heart disease, cancer, inflammatory bowel disease, and psoriatic arthritis. Is there a way to treat inflammation? Although inflammation in psoriasis is due to immune system dysregulation, studies suggest trusted source people can reduce this inflammation through lifestyle and dietary changes. This can help reduce symptoms and improve quality of life. Using these methods, many people who have psoriasis can maintain remission, which is a long period without experiencing psoriasis symptoms. Additionally, certain medications to treat psoriasis work by reducing inflammation. These include topical corticosteroids, injectable biologics, and oral medications. Everyone with psoriasis is different. Some people will require more extensive treatment than others. How to manage inflammation. While there is currently no cure for psoriasis, the following habits may help reduce psoriasis-related inflammation and increase a person's chances of experiencing remission. Eating a nutritious diet. Diet is strongly linked to systemic inflammation. Studies suggest certain inflammatory dietary patterns can increase the risk of psoriasis and worsen symptoms. A nutritious diet looks different for everyone. However, the following steps may help a person establish one. Avoiding inflammatory foods. Certain foods and beverages contain pro-inflammatory substances that increase inflammation and trigger psoriasis symptoms. Examples include soda and ultra-processed foods such as salty snacks, sweets, and processed meat products. Considering an anti-inflammatory diet, diets that are rich in fruits, vegetables, and other nutritious foods consistently reduce psoriasis symptoms. For example, a 2018 study of 35,735 people, including 3,557 with psoriasis, suggested that those who followed a Mediterranean-style diet had less severe psoriasis compared with people who did not. Maintaining a healthy weight. Obesity is a risk factor for psoriasis development. People with psoriasis who have overweight or obesity may also experience more severe symptoms than people with a moderate weight. Weight loss may reduce inflammatory markers and help reduce psoriasis symptoms in people with excess body weight. A 2020 study found that people with psoriasis and overweight or obesity who reduced their body weight by 12% through a 10-week program experienced a 50 to 75% reduction in psoriasis severity. Participants experienced an average weight loss of 23 pounds. Implementing other healthy habits. Several habits can help reduce inflammation and improve psoriasis symptoms, such as avoiding or quitting smoking. Smoking significantly harms a person's health and worsens inflammatory diseases, including psoriasis. Reducing alcohol intake. Excessive drinking can contribute to inflammation and worsen psoriasis symptoms. Staying active. Avoiding long periods of sitting may help with reducing psoriasis symptoms. One research review suggested that people with psoriasis who live sedentary lives have more severe symptoms compared with people who exercise regularly. Getting enough sleep. Not getting enough sleep can lead to a pro-inflammatory state in the body. Studies suggest poor and inconsistent sleep can increase inflammation markers in the blood. Experts recommend adults get 7 to 9 hours of sleep per night for optimal health. Managing stress levels. Prolonged stress makes the immune system overactive and contributes to a pro-inflammatory state. Up to 88% trusted source of people with psoriasis report stress as a trigger for their symptoms. Using stress-reducing techniques such as meditation and yoga may help. When to seek medical help. Anyone experiencing a psoriasis flare who is interested in learning ways to reduce psoriasis symptoms and inflammation may wish to consider speaking with their healthcare team, including their dermatologist. They can recommend treatment methods based on symptom severity and provide recommendations for diet and lifestyle changes that may help lower inflammation and reduce psoriasis symptoms. They may also suggest taking vitamins or supplements.